Shalom, giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rahakwadash. Double honors as always to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. And as always, we give peace and salutations to the elect, starting with the 144,000, with the 12 disciples at the head of that, under who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. That will be the governing body in the kingdom to come. All right. After that, you're going to have the large multitude, which the Heavenly Father through Yahweh Shai will gather from all kindreds, tongues, people, and nations. They're going to come looking, speaking, sounding like, the different nations, whether they have been scattered, but they're Israelites. Okay. That body, the 144,000, and the large multitude is known as the remnant of Israel, who are going to be gathered back to the Most High through Yahweh Shai upon his second coming. See, and before that happens, we know that there's a lot of prophecies that have to take place, because Esau very well understands that he's at the end of his age, at the end of his world. All right. And he's not going to go down, without a fight. The Heavenly Father, when he wrote this movie, this script from the foundation of the earth, he put a special hatred inside the minds of Esau as concerning that birthright that he gave away. So everything that he's done and that he is doing is centered around getting that birthright back and establishing himself as the top superior dominant nation on the planet Earth, even evolving to a god via his technology, his science, you see, and ruling over the lesser people. Okay. And it's all written in his science, which, as we can see in these latter days, they're returning to the very pseudoscience that was responsible for colonization, all right, sterilization, all right, and destruction, rape, robbing, and murder. All of these things that were done, when you go back to the colonial periods, all right, Spanish, the French, the British, even America, what they did and how they subjugated and destroyed and dominated people was always rooted and justified by their science. And what we can see here in these latter days is that they're returning to that science. When you look at the likes of Elon Musk, all right, Donald Trump, and these tech billionaires that are gathered unto them, they have a plan, all right, and within that plan, they will be the dominant, gods that rule on the earth, and you people will be subject to their plan. And they plan on doing away with the mass majority of you people because you don't qualify to live on their earth. And they're doing it by poisoning, and many other methods which we'll tap into. But as you can see, Donald Trump represents, bringing back, the white, nationalist, the white superiority complex that has been lost through inclusion, through all of these programs such as welfare, affirmative action, DEI, all of these things that are draining resources, although a lot of white women benefit from these things as well. All right. When Esau Edom talks about what's draining the majority of the resources, it's always going to point to you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. This is why there's a push, all right, to get low-hanging fruit degenerates, out of America via deportation. And it's always aimed at the tribes. Although you have migrants and immigrants from all over, from different nations, the focus is going to be the so-called Latin tribes, the so-called Native Americans, the so-called Haitians, you see. And through woke ideology, all of those people have been included, all right, with civil rights, all of these various different programs, all right, the lesser and the unfortunate, the lower developed people, so-called, in their science have been included. And basically, what Trump is coming back to do is stop all of these resources being, pushed into these programs, because what they were able to do and what they've always been able to do through civil rights is link the so-called black, fight to the LGBTXYZ fight. See, and when you hear, the talking point of a man is a man and a woman is a woman, all of this woke ideology culture is destroying our nation. It's true. However, what Jake doesn't understand is that they've been led into a burning house to where they're a part of that talking point and problem as well. And this is where you had programs like Black Lives Matter, and various different, Marxist, Lord willing, which we'll get into, programs that have led you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans to cry, all right, for a cause that is really against you, all right, really meant to undermine you. Now, what we're going to tap into today is the talking point of Esau Edom returning to the very science that was responsible, all right, and the backing of his colonization, his conquering of the nations, his justification for ridding the earth, all right, of billions of people, okay, because they are known as weeds in his garden, and ultimately they're not fit to live, so they're ultimately destroyed. All right, now with woke ideology, these people have been included, the inclusion method, okay, and this is where you get welfare, affirmative action, DEI, and things of that sort. Now, and again, these programs benefit so-called whites in large numbers, especially white women, especially DEI. White women benefited from that more than Jake. But the face of it all is going to be you Israelites. Now, I have a video here. Trump's DEI purge, a Trojan horse to overcome civil rights and erase history. Now, when you deal with what civil rights are, and civil rights, right, basically when you deal with it, it gives you the notion that you are lesser than the ruler, and they give you rights, and this becomes your fight. All right, this becomes your cry, this becomes your doctrine, this becomes your identity. Okay. Right now you got Jake crying about black history, black history. When you put the term black on yourself, you're entering into a playing field in an arena where Esau Edom has dominion and rule, and he's able to control the narrative. But civil rights are the rights that citizens of a country are guaranteed, all right, regardless of their race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or other characteristics. And it started with race, which you so-called blacks, but then it transferred over to gender with the women's rights, and then it transferred over to sexual orientation, which is gay rights, the rights to lay with a cat, the rights to have sex with ducks. All of that was bunched in with civil rights for blacks. See, so off of the backs of you so-called blacks, primarily, all of these other, agendas were bunched in, and now that's your clique. You see what I'm saying? So with that, you got the right to vote, you got the right to fair trial, you got a right to public education, freedom of religion, right to privacy, the right to have gainful employment, the right of housing. These were the rights you were granted within the system of white supremacy. And, when you deal with the agenda of the left, as you see the Democrats, they play on the emotions dealing with these things. All right. And Trump is coming to clean all of that up. So how does this tie to pseudoscience and the science that, these devils have presented? So we're going to play a little bit of this brother's video before we get all the way into it. And in the grand scheme of things, Esau has ran his system with pseudoscience. The world is ran under the guise of pseudoscience, okay, which is false science, which the scriptures prophesied that he would come with these various different things. As a matter of fact, when you read 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, In the 8th verse, it says, "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all signs, power, and lying wonders." And when we look up this word lying wonders, dun, 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 what do we get? We get the word pseudoscience. Okay? And what does that term mean? It's a Greek word. There's many Greek words floating around within the system of Edomite supremacy, Latin and everything like that, because this is the Greco-Roman Empire revived. So the term pseudos means what? A lie, conscious and intentional falsehood, which this is the foundation of Western philosophy. This is what the beast system is rooted in. Conscious and intentional falsehood. You see? To boost themselves up as the highest functioning human being. Because in the grand scheme of things, the ones who were made in the Most High's image are the Israelites. See, Esau likes to run around with this notion that all men were created in the image of God. This is what Christians teach. But when you read that, the ones who were created in the image of God, it started with Adam. Okay, and Adam had a son named Abel who was slew. His sacrifice was accepted above Cain's sacrifice because Cain was not created in the image of the Most High. And through that, we know Cain slew Abel, and then Adam had Seth. Okay? Genesis 5:1. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female he created he them. All right? And blessed them and called their name Adam in the day that they were created. So out of all of the people on the earth, Adam was given the order, okay, associated with running this earth in the way the Heavenly Father deemed it to be ran. Adam was the superior of all of the people on the planet earth. Then he gave him Eve, and they had children to form a legacy, right? Through Seth, because Abel was slew. Cain was the wicked one, right? And Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness after his image and called his name Seth. Seth begot Enos, and then we know, pursuant to Genesis, the 4th chapter, that's when men began to call on the name of the Lord. So these were the people who were superior. And then it goes down to Canaan. Then you get Enoch eventually. Then you get Methuselah. Then you get Noah, who had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The superior people then, all right, when you get Genesis, the 11th chapter, all right, came through Shem. All right. The scriptures say, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem." All right. In Genesis, the 9th chapter. But when you get Genesis, the 11th chapter, just to give you a quick history, that superior people, okay, continue through the descendants of Shem, through Arphaxad, right, which you get the point of anti-Semitism. When they're saying anti-Semitism, they're saying anti-Shemitic or Shem, because they are saying they are the superior people, which they do come from Shem, but they come from Shem through eventually Abraham, Isaac, and Esau, not Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See? So the superior people are continuously tracked through Arphaxad, through Selah, through Eber, all the way up to Terah, who had Abraham. Abraham had Isaac. Isaac had Jacob. Jacob established the 12 tribes of Israel. See? And eventually, at the time of Moses, that nation of people was given a law that was to separate them from all of the people on the entire planet Earth. And when you deal with the talking point of Jacob and Esau, right? Real quick, let's get as a matter of fact, let's just do it like this. I think I had it up here. Genesis, the 25th chapter. All right, when Jacob and Esau were born, all right, or before they were born, this was the prophecy surrounding them. Genesis 25 and 23. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, And two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and one people shall be stronger than the other. And the elder, which is Esau, shall serve the younger. So right here, one people shall be stronger than the other. Okay, let's look up the term stronger. Okay, so all people aren't created evil. Okay, the word for stronger, amatazah, beautiful Hebrew name, amatazah. To be strong, alert, courageous, brave, stout, bold, solid, hard, strength, determined to make oneself strengthen, affirm, obstinate, assure. And the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American are better than the biblical Edomites. It's just that they've been fed ideologies, diets, and everything to keep them in a very, very, subordinate state. And it's the curses as well. Okay, so the Lord has allowed the bases of men, all right, to rule, and he's ruled with the philosophy, all right, that deems you inferior. Okay, let's get that in Daniel 4 real quick. Daniel, the 4th chapter. And the 17th verse, I believe. Give me 1 second. All right, Daniel 4 and 17. It says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and the demand of the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of man, and he giveth it to whomsoever you will, and set it up over it, the basest of men. So the basis of men has been given a blessing to where he now rules, and he's ruling with pseudoscience. Okay? What is pseudoscience? A collection of beliefs and practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method. All right. Pseudoscience. Okay. What best describes pseudoscience? Pseudoscience is often characterized by contradictory, exaggerated, and unfalsifiable claims, reliance on confirmation bias rather than rigor, attempts at refutation, the lack of openness to evaluation by other experts, and so forth, man. And Esau Edom has ran his system based upon pseudoscience, all right? And at the forefront of it, he's the superior people. He's undone the Heavenly Father's, all right, truths through lies. And this is why the scriptures say the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty, all right, through the casting down of things that oppose and exalt themselves against the Most High God, Yahweh, through his son, Yahweh Shah. And this is exactly what everything that this devil has done and is doing speaks to. All right. Now, what I want to do is start here. We're going to listen to some of what this brother says in this video. Scientific racism is coming back in a big way. We need deliverance. GMS Fear the Most High 7 Ga. Okay, subscribe and be edified.
To push all this craziness, this insanity that there's multiple genders, and then the right was like, but hold on, scientifically there's only 2 genders, and you're wondering to yourself, well, why is this a big thing? It's because they were setting up the whole thing of science versus wokeism. Science versus wokeism. And what is also a part of wokeism? The idea that black people are equal. That is a part of wokeism. The idea that white people are guilty for the things that they've done to other nations.
And the left-hand agenda, the Democrats played to that agenda. Okay? Even when you look at the press secretary for Joe Biden, it was a black Haitian lesbian. And that's just going to speak to the Southern Kingdom. All right. They don't care that she's not a so-called foundational black American, so to speak. But she's a dark-skinned black woman who absolutely stunk up the field. They were asking her questions. She was lying, contradicting herself. She was all about, pro-abortion. She was all about this. She represented everything wrong with the world, but it was a black face put on it, right? And she's a carpet muncher. She's a lesbo, okay? She's a lesbo. Jean Pierre is a lesbian that was in a relationship with former CNN correspondent Susan Malvo. All right. So over the last 4 years, this nigga has been forced down everybody's throat. Esau Edom grew tired of it. Even we grew tired of it. Okay. It was an absolute shit show, right? And that was done on purpose. Now, look at who they have in there. Okay, look who she's been replaced with. Which statement do you think Esau's making with this? And when you read the comments, you can see Esau's like, yes, finally, a white American Christian woman. She's supposedly a Catholic, all right, but she's precise. She's bold. She advocates for pro-life. See. So Esau is underhandedly letting you know that they're bringing back white supremacy and everything that made this nation great in the first place. And she's married to a man 32 years older than her. All right, but she represents, the answer. This is the answer to all of the issues that the left have made. All right, and created. And at the forefront of it, that woke ideology, it always included you so-called blacks. You were the face of it. And it was a snare. Let's keep listening to this, brother.
And to the so-called black man, Hispanic, and that is also part of wokeism. But now they're going to go with what? Science. And science supports that actually, no, the so-called white man isn't guilty. That everything they've done is natural. It's natural law. And if you try and help so-called black people, it ain't gonna work because they just ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the right genetics. They're prone to violence and stupidity. Do you understand? This is what is happening right now before your very eyes, and it's been set up. That's why the scripture says the serpent is more subtle than any beast of the field. This whole woke era was a smokescreen for what they're about to do now.
That's it.
Behind closed doors, what they're about to push now is what they've always believed. This is why evolution has always been in the schools. This is why evolution has always been pushed, whether the left or the right were in power, because it's the basis of what they're about to do. How it works. Social Darwinists believe that the
social Darwinism, which is pretty much a big part of their philosophy, these theories that these Edomites passed down through all their generations to where what makes them superior, how the world around them works, how to classify people. When you read the book of Habakkuk, the second chapter, all right, it says, Habakkuk 2:4, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine. His wine is his philosophy, and people are drunk off of that philosophy. This is why you have our people, walking around talking about black rights. That you're drunk off of the wine. You see? Now, when you deal with civil rights, the scriptures did tell us there would be a point where we would have to go to our enemy for all things, and that fulfilled it. There would be programs and things put in place to kind of help Jake. But in the grand scheme of things, it was always a snare to lead you into a position of inferiority, all right, which speaks to the Marxist ideology where you're crying for handouts, you see, and you have to be ruled over, right? So he transgressed by wine. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlarges his desire as hell, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. And when he gathers all of the people unto himself, he classifies them. He puts names on them. He puts stigmas surrounding them, right? And now he's getting ready to go even further with the NWO agenda. You see, and in the grand scheme of things, Psalm 62 and 4, they only consult to cast him down from his excellency, see of inferiority, stupid, bit, dumb. See. They bless with their mouth, but they curse inwardly. So it was looked at as a situation where we're here to help you and bring inclusion to where you can be included in our world, our society that we made, right? And this is why Esau tells you civilization started with the Greeks, because all of these thought patterns that have ran this world, all of this pseudoscience, all right, has its roots in Greco-Roman philosophy and thought. And the Greeks weren't the basis of civilization. They were the beginning of Esau's beast system, the very beast system we live in. But when you deal with social Darwinism, right? Let's listen to this brother.
Powerful in society are inherently better than the weak. Let me read that again. Social Darwinists believe that the powerful in society are inherently better than the weak. They believe that success is proof of superiority. The system of whites.
So here it is. They can have close to 300 years of free labor. And at the end of that, they can say, well, the reason that these people are at the bottom is not because of my unjust system. It's because they're inherently stupid. They belong there. That's science. That's backed by science that they're at the bottom. They're at the bottom and I'm at the top because I am superior. So he was able to ultimately, this is how a way that he defies the Most High, because the true superior people of the earth are the Israelites. And that's because the Most High did that. You see, when you go to the book of Ecclesiastes 33, it says in 10, all men are from the ground, and Adam was created of earth. In much knowledge, the Lord have divided them and made their ways diverse. Okay? Because all of the nations on the planet Earth have their origin back to Adam, because it was through his descendant Noah, who had Shem, Ham, and Japheth, where all of the nations, the 18 nations on the planet Earth, are determined. Esau has undermined it, all right, the Most High's narrative and the biblical narrative, and presented you pseudoscience to where now people don't call themselves after biblical nationalities. There's only one person on the planet Earth boasting and having a biblical nationality, and guess who that is? Okay, the so-called Jew. And within the grand scheme of things, this whole social Darwinism, thing we're going into, he has the highest IQ. He's the highest functioning human being. See? And see, what's happened over these last years is that he's become small among the heathen. Let's get that. Okay? The book of Obadiah, okay? He's being, he's becoming less in number. Okay, this is another reason why he wants all of those northern kingdom out of here, because he's of the opinion that if these people grow, just like in Egypt, if these people are able to grow and continue multiplying, then hey, they're going to come against us. So they have to deal wisely with you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Keep you at a disadvantage. Keep you on the go. Keep you moving here. Keep you thinking this. Keep you fighting for that. They keep you scattered mentally, physically, spiritually. Obadiah, verse 2, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. So Esau, Edom is becoming small among the heathen. So all right, Donald Trump is representing a philosophy to cull all of that and get back to what made us great in the first place, man. Right? Let's go back and listen to this brother. I think I had Scripture. Let's just go back here and then we'll jump around. It's a few videos I want to get.
Supremacy. The so-called white man over the last 500 years has been the most successful people in the earth. Therefore, they are genetically superior and have a right to be in that position. This is the belief, and they believe that the governments and reformers should not try to help the poor. Don't worry about Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians and trying to help them with welfare and affirmative action and DEI, because it's not going to work. It's only going to destroy everything because they're not supposed to be helped. This is what's coming down the pipeline.
This is what's happening. This is what, we'll go into this video here. All right. This whole DEI and why Jake is at the forefront of it, although it's benefited more white women. Okay, you got these protests. What are they saying? What's actually happening? Because they're killing two birds with one stone. All right, with this whole airplane crash. On one sense, the people who they have to bring in a AI to fix the mess because humans are incompetent. But then on the other hand, he threw out the talking point of DEI. And you have these people who've been included and who have been able to get jobs. Because what is inclusion? Let's look up the term inclusion. The talking point of inclusion. And this is what the left played into when you deal with the Biden administration these past 4 years. It dealt with inclusion, but at the forefront of it was blacks and gays. That's how they play it, man. The action or state of including or being included within a group or structure, the practice or policy providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. And why are they excluded and marginalized? Well, we know it's because of the curses, speaking of our people, right? But within the system of Edomite supremacy, all right, this is your position, okay? You're a part of that group. You're excluded and marginalized, okay, because you're not a part of the superior class, such as those who have physical or intellectual disabilities and members of other minority groups. So with this inclusion thing, people who aren't, qualified for certain positions get the position. See? And Trump is saying we're coming to do away with that, which in the grand scheme of things, that makes sense. But there's a deeper meaning to it because you so-called blacks are at the forefront of what's wrong with this world in the eyes of Esau Edom. What's wrong with America is that it's too many blacks and browns that have been included in our world, our society, our kingdom. Okay, which you stole this land. Okay, let's go back here.
I'm showing it to you. Right? What it's being used for. Social Darwinism has been used to justify racism, imperialism, eugenics, and social inequality. And you see it more and more, that the xenophobia in the West, where the West looks down on anyone the term West is just another way of saying white. They look down on these people from other nations and see the immigration of these people from these other nations as bringing in that which is inferior.
Right.
You're bringing in these people who are more stupid, more violent, more crazy. This is the ideology. And this is what Trump ran on. Because they're about to bring social Darwinism back, but under a different name. They're not going to call it social Darwinism. It's just going to be called AI governance, science, right? They use it to justify racism, imperialism, eugenics, and social inequality.
And let's get the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter. Revelation, the 13th chapter, in the 3rd verse. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, the Western Roman Empire, and his deadly wound was healed, the Renaissance period, and all the world wondered after the beast. So what the Renaissance was able to do to give them power to spread philosophies, and theory, okay, associate, which we're going to show you, and they people view the world through the eyes of the Romans, Okay, so within the system of Edomite supremacy, you view yourself as inferior, and you have a all right, superior. They were. Who was like unto able to make war with given unto him things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. See, he opened his mouth in blasphemy against the Most High, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And power was given to him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. And behind that colonization, all right, was Darwinism and different theories that deem them superior and you inferior, and they're tapping back into this. As a matter of fact, check this out.
I need you to see this. Elon Musk is spreading a very specific kind of racism on.
And when you deal with a guy like Elon Musk, he's from South Africa, which are some of the most hateful and so-called racist Edomites there are. Okay, what happened in South Africa was apartheid, ethnic cleansing of the people of that land. As a matter of fact, let's look up the word, because we hear apartheid. What is the meaning of apartheid? Apartheid was a system of legalized racial segregation in South Africa that lasted from 1948 to 1994. And what else happened in 1948? The establishment of the State of Israel, which that is all forwarding colonization and ethnic cleansing. That's all it is. And they're returning to that here in the West now. Okay? The term apartheid comes from the African word apartheid, which means separateness. Okay? So it's all rooted in ethnic cleansing. Okay? Elon Musk comes from a family that was a part of that. Okay? So you see him being linked with Donald Trump. Okay? You best believe, all right, when you seen him throw up that Nazi symbol or whatever, it's all rooted in Edomite supremacy.
Internet right now.
You want to start retweeting some of the most prominent race scientists. And it was like,
Hold on,
I need you to see this.
let me slow this down a little bit. Let's make that normal.
Elon Musk is spreading a very specific kind of racism on the internet right now.
you want to start retweeting some of the most prominent race scientists. And there was like nothing. No one. Chuck Schumer met with them after that. He is like the sort of patient zero for a lot of stuff right now.
Elon seems to really like this account. They've gone by a few names on the platform, but they share extremely racist content that argues that black people are innately intellectually inferior beings. We actually settled this debate generations ago.
This is why you look under any internet post where a nigga is acting like a savage, and you see the Edomites on there saying typical, usual suspects, the low-hanging fruit, low IQ. They're returning to those narratives. You see, they're tired of pity patting, all right, with the savages. That's what the left did. That's what the Biden administration presented. So now they're coming with a different mindset, and Elon Musk is all about it.
But Elon Musk is helping to bring it back.
Meet Louis Agassiz, a Swiss-born American biologist who believed that the races developed separately and were of different origins. In his view, Negroes were of the, quote, lowest grade of humanity.
Look at this graph. It shows the follower growth of this account over time. And many of those peaks that you're seeing are the moments when Elon Musk engaged with them over the last few years.
And so-called white people have been down and out. So they need something to cling on to, and this Trump administration gives them everything they need to return to the height of their pride. But what does this mean for you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and for the rest of the people? Is hell. Even lesser fortunate Edomites are going to be victims of what's to come. Because even when you listen to this guy here, we'll show you in just a minute.
Years. A simple response from Elon gives a fringe account like this one access to millions of users, drawing greater attention to these destructive ideas and earning this account tens of thousands of new followers. This page is part of a larger network of race science advocates on.
See that? The IQ. intelligence quotient. Okay? Which you got to look these things up. Because Esau can talk over your head with these talking points. IQ, an intelligence quotient, is a total score derived from a set of standardized tests, all right, or subtests diagnosed to assess human intelligence. So people have been able to, been kicked out of society, sterilized, deemed stupid because they didn't meet a particular intelligence quotient score. This is what they use to justify sterilizing people and so many more things, okay? So when Esau talks like this, all right, you got to understand what he's saying.
Twitter. People who use out of context IQ data and cherry picked examples to make gross, sweeping statements about entire groups of people. And Elon Musk gobbles it up, pulling his audience of tens of millions of followers down the rabbit hole with him. And I'm not the only one who recognizes Elon's impact. They know that he's the best thing to happen to their racist ideas too, saying that he's done more to raise awareness for their cause than anything else.
People are not being convinced by the strength of the empirical argument. They're being convinced by the appearance of the empirical argument.
That's Will Stancil. He's an attorney and he's been fighting against this army of bigots for months.
People are almost more susceptible to simpler, charts with like race and IQ than they are to the really complicated stuff. The simple stuff, they can look at a chart and there's a line, there's a line that says Black Americans, and says IQ 70, white Americans IQ 101, and people go, well, that's it then. This is the most basic statistic.
Yeah, people have lived their lives based on this science. It's how people view the world, when we talk about the accuser of the brethren, he's been able to accuse you. As a matter of fact, when you look at how the Most High set things up, going back here, Sirach 33:10, all men are from the ground, and Adam was created of earth. And much knowledge have the Lord divided them and made their ways diverse. Some of them have he blessed and exalted, and some of them have he sanctified and set near himself. But some of them have he cursed and brought low and turned out of their places. See that? So Esau has reversed this because he's the one who has been cursed and brought low in the grand scheme of things. He's if you look at human being, he's the worst. He's the basis of men. But he's been able to, through his science, which comes with his blessing, right? He would have the sword, but these ideologies will pretty much give him the ability to exalt himself as the eagle, which is the highest flying bird. See? So the Most High exalted and blessed certain men and set them near himself, the Israelites. But some have he cursed and brought low and turned out of their places. As the clay is in the potter's hand to fashion it at his pleasure, so is man in the hand of him that made him, to render to them as liketh him best. So good is set against evil and life against death. So is the godly against the sinner and the sinner against the godly. So look upon all the works of the Most High, and there are two and two, and one against another. But we know in Daniel the 7th chapter, it tells you that this devil would defy the Most High. He would come with ideologies and things that challenge the Most High's authority and who he deems special, and create his own version via pseudoscience to cast you down from your excellency. Okay? And when you even listen to this guy, let's go here real quick. Let's just go to the end of it.
Textile workers in Bangladesh lose their jobs. The children of Bangladesh to think that, the US government will raise taxes on Google and Amazon in California and use that to pay basic income to the unemployed Bangladeshi. If you believe that, you can just as well believe that Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny will come and take care of the Bangladeshi. Because I don't think this is a realistic solution. Nobody knows what the solution is.
The solution of helping the less fortunate, the low IQ hanging fruit is what he's going into. But listen to him.
So we may be facing in the 21st century a completely new kind of inequality, which we have never seen before in human history. On the one hand, the emergence of a new upgraded elite of superhumans enhanced by bioengineering and brain-computer interfaces and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other hand, a new massive useless class, a class that has no military or economic usefulness and therefore also no political power.
And that's the again, they're returning to that Darwinism. Now, let's get an understanding of what Darwinism is, so you can understand what they're getting ready to do. Then we'll get into that DEI video, and we'll get some other scriptures and close it out. This is called Darwin, Africa, and Genocide, the horror of scientific racism. This is what they're returning to. Okay? Again, you got to understand, this is what they've used to justify them being superior. This is what white, the people who I am destroying are not human. It's just another savage beast in our garden. We have the ability, we have the right to ethnically cleanse them. These are the ideologies that they're using, and they're bringing it back here to the West. And it's all going to come under this AI and everything else. We're showing you how they're linking the two. This devil, again, the scriptures say he is more subtle than any of the beasts of the field.
By the last decades of the 19th century, Darwin's theory was increasingly popular among Germany's intellectual elite. Darwin had claimed that humans and other mammals were the product of what he called natural selection, a blind struggle for existence where the fittest survived and reproduced.
The fittest were able to survive and reproduce. So they used different, when you deal with Planned Parenthood and the talking point of eugenics, okay? What is eugenics? Okay. Why there is a Planned Parenthood, in all of the neighborhoods where our people are, why they lead the league in these things. You know what I'm saying? Because they didn't want your seed to reproduce. Remember in Egypt, what did the Egyptians say? Because Esau, Edom is becoming small among the heathen, in the book of Exodus in Egypt, which this is a spiritual Egypt, they had to deal wisely with the Israelites, man. Because Esau, Edom knows, all right, that he's being outpopulated. This is what the Egyptians said of the Israelites. Exodus 1:10, come on, let us deal wisely with them. Speaking of the Israelites, Exodus 1:9, and he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also our enemies and fight against us. So get them up out of the land. This is a part of why they're trying to get the Latin tribes out of here. There's that war. It's a part of it. Okay. And they put more hell on the Israelites because they were like, we got to deal wisely with them. They even set up midwives to ultimately kill off all of the male children. So that same ideology is still here. Eugenics is the study of how to arrange reproduction within the human population to increase the occurrence of heritable characteristics regarded as desirable. So the ultimately only the superior race should be able to multiply in numbers. We have to take down the numbers of these particular groups of people because they spread violence and things we don't want in our garden, in our world. Okay? Let's go back.
and the less fit died off. In his book, The Descent of Man, Darwin made clear the fittest survived and reproduced selection, a blind struggle for existence where the fittest survived and reproduced, and the less fit died off. In his book, The Descent of Man, Darwin made clear that his idea of natural selection had implications for human society.
Charles Darwin clearly was a social Darwinist. He was not as rabid a social Darwinist as some of his followers later on, but he clearly did believe that Darwinism should be applied to human societies.
Darwin worried that civilized societies were harming humanity by helping the poor, caring for the sick.
By helping the poor, caring for the sick. You see a lot of defunding going on with hospitals, a lot of defunding going on with programs centered around helping the poor. Trump is talking about this. See that? Did you hear what I just said?
Darwin worried that civilized societies were harming humanity by helping the poor, caring for the sick, and otherwise saving those whom nature would have killed off. Darwin feared that such humanitarianism could eventually destroy the human race.
Destroy the white race. See? Destroy their superiority.
Darwin also predicted that in the future, the civilized races of mankind would exterminate the inferior ones.
Who's inferior? At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the whole world the savage races. Okay? And who's a savage in the grand scheme of things in their system? You Israelites, the other heathen nations. Okay? This is basically just a left-handed example of what the Most High is going to do through the Israelites. All right? Because you Edomites are going to be exterminated. And the savage races, the heathen, are going to be ruled over by the Israelites to learn righteousness. See? But again, they defy the Most High. This is their form of life and how things should be ran.
Darwin himself was ambivalent about some of the social implications of his theory. But in Germany, Darwin's ideas supplied a new generation of political leaders, social thinkers, and scientists with what they regarded as a biological justification for world domination.
If you read the scientists...
And they're doing that now, you know, with all of these tech giants, okay, who were with Trump at his inauguration. You know, this is what they're bringing back, man.
Of the day, in the late 19th and early 20th century, many of them were promoting racism and even racial extermination, extinction of races. They were promoting the gaining of living space. They were promoting competition, the things that we know of as social Darwinism. These were things being promoted by Charles Darwin himself to some degree, many other leading biologists.
The war of annihilation is a natural law, without which the organic world could not continue to exist at all. German zoologist Gustav Jaeger, 1870. Just as in nature, the struggle for existence is the moving principle of evolution and perfection, so also in world history, the destruction of the weaker nations through the stronger is a postulate of progress.
See that? This is their philosophy. And then they throw, this showcase evolution to you and tell you, well, all mankind comes from Africa. They give you Lucy, which is a half monkey, half woman, and that's your ancestor, the Africa theory, all of these various different things, and you eat it up. But in the grand scheme of things, this is what they're talking about. They're going to evolve into gods, all right, and purge out the weaker nations and rule over a small amount of them in their new world order. Okay, this is what they're tapping into. This is what they're really all about. This is what the Edomite has done. Okay, this is how he justified being where he is now. Going to a land where people are already there and saying, I discovered it. This science backed it.
German ethnologist Friedrich Hellwald, 1875. According to Darwin's theory, wars have always been of the greatest importance for the general progress of the human species. The physically weaker, the less intelligent, the morally lower, must give place to the stronger.
That's it.
German biologist Heinrich Ziegler, 1893.
not all German Darwinists defended war as a biological imperative. Some, in fact, criticized it for undermining natural selection. They feared that wars in Europe would kill off too many of the superior races. Yet even these pacifist Darwinists tended to approve of wars waged against races they considered lower on the evolutionary scale.
And that's what they're doing. They're getting ready to wage war, all right, on the the low-hanging fruit. And Judah thinks that, what's happening to the so-called Mexican ain't got nothing to do with us. Well, you're getting ready to see. Just keep living.
Like the native peoples of Africa. And it was in Germany's colony in southwest Africa, now known as Namibia, that the social Darwinism of German military leaders moved from theory to practice in the years leading up to World War I.
Yep, the average German here looks upon, and we know there's Israelites scattered, but they did this to actual heathen as well. Remember, we just read in Revelation, the 13th chapter, in the 7th verse, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and power was given him over all kindreds, tongues, and nations. So he not only did he dominate and brutalize the Israelites, but he did this to all nations. Okay? Treat them as baboons. Okay? You niggas are monkeys.
Between 1904 and 1908, the German military attempted to eradicate the Herero people in southwest Africa in what some scholars consider the first genocide of the 20th century. On October 2nd, 1904, General Lothar von Trotha issued what became known as his extermination order, declaring that the Hereros either had to leave German Southwest Africa or face extinction.
See, you got to leave or face extinction, and this is kind of what Trump is telling the illegals over here, which is all pointed at the Northern Kingdom and some Levi. All right, he was even basically signing legislation where they can be carted off to Guantanamo Bay, tortured, destroyed, disappeared. Okay.
Herero men would be executed, and Herero women and children would be driven into the desert, where they would die of starvation or dehydration.
Same thing happening.
Von Trotha justified his extermination campaign by an explicit appeal to social Darwinism, telling one newspaper that human feelings of philanthropy could not override the law of Darwin's the struggle of the fittest.
And they're bringing this back, but it's all, as this brother is going into, it's all going to be, brought forth, under, AI and, evolving into gods.
When von Trotha's extermination campaign provoked a backlash in Germany, a new plan was developed to move the remaining Hereros to concentration camps, where many more would ultimately die from malnutrition.
Is not that what Trump's saying that let's look it up. Let's look up Trump. Guantanamo Bay. Let's see what he's talking about. Trump's Pentagon shocked by Trump's order to house migrants on Guantanamo Bay. So it's the same thought process, but it's just under the guise of new wording. Okay? That's all. That's all.
Nutrition, disease, and exhaustion. In these death camps, the Hereros were subjected to medical experiments by German doctors, and their skulls were collected for shipment back to Germany to be studied by experts in racial science. By 1908, it's estimated that more than 80% of the Herero people had been eliminated from German Southwest Africa. Back in Europe, meanwhile, German military leaders prepared for the next conflict on their continent. In 1912, German General Friedrich von Bernhardi published his bestseller, Germany and the Next War. Bernhardi argued that the struggle for existence is, in the life of nature, the basis of all healthy development. Therefore, war is a biological necessity.
And this is why the scriptures say in Revelation 12, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, of the sea, because the devil has come down unto you having great wrath. He's returning to all of those ideologies. But guess what? Now he has AI. Now he has the perfected sword. Okay? And this is very much at the basis of what he's getting ready to do, as we'll show you more.
Similar ideas could be found among the military leaders of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Count Franz Conrad von Hotzendorf has been called by one scholar the architect of the apocalypse for his formative role in World War I. The chief of the General Staff of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, von Hotzendorf, read Darwin as a young officer, and he soon applied the Darwinian worldview to his ideas about foreign relations. After World War I started, many German thinkers invoked Darwinian theory to justify the conflict, including prominent zoologist Ernst Haeckel, previously a pacifist.
Once it got going, there were many people who argued that it was a part of the Darwinian struggle for existence. Ernst Haeckel even wrote a book during the war in which he called it part of the struggle for existence, in which he argued that the perfidious French were using black colonial troops against the superior Germans. And he found that horrifying, that they would do such a thing. And so there were many people who were justifying the war on as part of the Darwinian struggle for existence.
In the end, Germany and its allies lost the First World War. But the ideology of social Darwinism that inspired its academic and military...
And it's crazy that in school, we were taught about Darwin as if, he's a great guy. We were taught about all of these Edomite scientists and, anthropologists and, social, and their social views, when you tap into it, was all rooted in being superior to you and, dark practices, pedophilia, wickedness. The world has been ran by these theories. And now they want to upgrade it with the perfected sword, AI, and technology, all right, and under the guise of science. See what I'm saying?
Military leaders survived for another day. Among the defeated soldiers of the German war machine was a young corporal in the Bavarian army. Intensely bitter at the defeat of Germany and its allies, the corporal found new purpose for his life by embracing an even more fanatical social Darwinism than that which had been adopted by the leaders of the Second Reich. Within 2 decades, the whole world would know the corporal's name.
Yep, and that's going into Hitler. We'll go back into that. Let's listen to some more of this, brother. No, as a matter of fact, let me play this.
Oh yeah, this one's gonna make me popular. So yeah, there was a time when racism was not only mainstream, but scientifically approved. We had top scientists in their fields writing long diatribes about, quote, race science, all of which turned out to be, well, racist conjecture. And while we put it in the realm of goofy Victorian ideas, it still affects today. And we still have best-selling authors spouting the same thoughts. Not to mention, the facts aside, self-described skeptics and rationals on the internet and in the comments of this video dig up these long-dead ideas. I've rambled long enough. This is the Scientific Racism video. Hi, I'm Tristan Johnson. This is Step Back History. Be sure to click the subscribe button as well as prove humanity. Scientists made the argument literally of race, scientific consent. It begins to longer a form. There's going to be a lot of preposterously logical fact of humanity. For a long, scientific racism is pretty much what it says in the tin. It was, and is, the use of various forms of pseudoscience to, quote, prove race is a biological fact of humanity. For a long time, scientists made the argument different races were literally different species. This concept of race was the prevailing scientific consensus for centuries. It began to decline when conjecture was no longer a form of evidence. By the way, there's going to be a lot of preposterously racist theories described in this video. They have zero merits, but they most definitely can be distressing to hear about, as these ideas, while ridiculous, still popular in some circles. The origins of scientific racism go all the way back to some classical age thinkers. In the
classical age thinkers.
Greco-Roman tradition, you had...
In the Greco-Roman tradition.
As these ideas, while ridiculous, still popular in some circles. The origins of scientific racism go all the way back to some classical age thinkers. In the Greco-Roman tradition, you had Hippocrates writing about dark people being cowards and light people being courageous fighters. Roman writers like Posidonius used to refer to, quote, those races nearest to the southern half of the axis, quote, as not having enough blood, making them have features different from them. This was pretty...
So, as you can see, the Renaissance brought back all of those ideologies, man. So Darwin's uncle was studying a lot of that madness, and he was able to forward it. You see what I'm saying? But again, in the grand scheme of things, this is how they justified what they've done in the earth as science and not actual racism.
Pretty much the extent of it before the Age of Enlightenment. Remember how you used to like J.K. Rowling before you found out she has a Twitter? Well, if your J.K. Rowling is Enlightenment philosophers, you might want to turn off now. Voltaire, like the Voltaire, believed different races developed independently of each other. Apparently, being the Enlightenment version of an edgy atheist because this broke with the church doctrine about Adam and Eve and such. In his book, Systema Naturae, Carl Linnaeus, the founder of modern-day taxonomy, outlined 5, quote, varieties of humanity as a sort of subspecies list.
It's enough, Linnaeus.
Immanuel Kant waxed lyrical about his ideas about what races were good and bad based on stereotypes, while claiming it to be based on reasoned philosophy. And Benjamin Rush, the founding father, thought being non-white was a disease. However, scientific racism hit its zenith in the Victorian era. Developing scientific theories meshed with presupposed conclusions about race to result in some of the weirdest concepts ever called legitimate, accepted scientific fact. Especially if—
And again, these things dominate Western thought. This is the basis of Western science thought. This is what it's all rooted in.
they could use it to defend slavery or colonization. The first big debate in the old-timey race science circles that thankfully doesn't exist today, unless somebody links me to someone who really does believe that, of course, is whether or not races are the same species. Yes, until recently, some even in the 20th century, people denied all humans are of the same lineage. They called it polygenism, and many Enlightenment thinkers debated over this. It was really just debates using conjecture and assumed stereotypes.
And when you look at everyone on the planet Earth, they have their origin back to Adam through his descendant Noah, who had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the Heavenly Father put different spirits and assignments on these nations. And he chose one out of the 18 nations, only one was chosen, and that's the Israelites. All right, which are the sons of God. All right.
So you can imagine how productive it went. These were debates which came down to whether not being white was because they were a different species or because they had a skin condition where a mole covered the entire body. We're working with this kind of stuff. Another theory had to do with skull shape. You can find this in various scientific journals of the period. Long descriptions about how every person's skull from this region has these features and that features, which somehow made them less than white people. They even used this to try and claim Southern European or Irish people were somehow not white. This developed into a prominent scientific Victorian science called phrenology, which—
And a lot of the Irish are Israelites, you know.
Key Victorian science, and I can keep covering the grim discussion of people with horrible worldviews. The analytics say you folks love that stuff. Another prominent word from these long discredited race scientists and modern-day comment sections is the term degeneracy. Go look at the comments. I'm sure you'll find it. A French naturalist named Georges-Louis Leclerc and German anatomist—
Notice that these are all members of the beast system. Okay? And what John the Revelator saw in Revelation, the 13th chapter, was this system, you know, where Rome would be revived. The Greco-Roman Empire will be revived, and it would bring about a system of control through technology, and eventually you would have to get a chip. Okay? Now let's listen to some of what this brother is saying here again. Let's listen to some of this. We'll go back to that.
You can go over Twitter. For the last 4 or 5 years, Twitter has been where they all at. And all these Edomites are on Twitter, basically screaming and shouting social Darwinism without actually using the word social Darwinism. And it's the same thing in the UK. This is what the resurgence of whiteness represents. It was a factor in the policies of British businesses, churches, and government during the expansion of the British Empire. This has always been at the heart of Edomiteness.
That's
but
it.
What they did was they put it under the radar post World War II and brought in an era of wokeness and social and political correctness,
Inclusion,
to hide it.
right.
But now they're bringing it back out into the open. Who supported it? Herbert Spencer, a British economist who was a leading advocate of social Darwinism. William Graham Sumner, an American sociologist, was a leading advocate of social Darwinism. And Walter Bagehot, a British economist, was a leading advocate of social Darwinism. The philosophies that they speak of, which is Nazi, which they incorporate into Nazism, when you actually understand history, Hitler learned social Darwinism and eugenics from Britain and America. Britain and America didn't go to war with Germany to fight against social Darwinism, because social Darwinism came from Britain and America. This is where you get the social services. This is where you get Planned Parenthood. This is where you get in the UK, they have is it Marie Stopes? This is where you get the Marie Stopes, because Marie Stopes, oh my goodness.
Look at her.
Hey, yo. Hey, shalom, elder. Oh, hey, man. And this whole idea that Edomite women are so beautiful and the black women are so ugly and fat. Yeah, it's all white supremacy, man. These Edomite women are not, like, what are we talking about here? This is insane, but it is what it is. This is Marie Stopes. She is the female version, because obviously they had to use a woman to push eugenics, because a lot of the eugenics revolves around women and childbirth. All right, so it had to come from a woman. It can't come from the patriarchy, obviously. She is the British version of Margaret Sanger. And if somebody can put the quote that Margaret Sanger made about depopulating the so-called Negroes, that would be great. Yeah. Now you don't hear Trump talking about that, do you? Right? And even when Trump and them so-called banned abortion, which they didn't, you can have abortion still. It just depends on the state, right? They never actually mentioned eugenics as a reason. You know, they're not really exposing what was really going on. All right. Now hold on. So that's Marie Stopes, right? And she founded the Marie Stopes Foundation, which does the same thing that Planned Parenthood. And if you look at the UK, black women make up 33% of all abortions, and we only like 3% of the population. So they still target the blacks more with these facilities, and also they target the poor whites, because this system of Darwinistic racism also applies to their own people, because the elites believe that they've evolved further than the rest of these Edomites, or the Goyim, I should say. All right. So you got Marie Stopes. Marie Stopes is the same as Margaret Sanger, and that shows you that they run the same program everywhere. They just use a different agent. Oh my goodness. There we go. Another. And this is what most of these Edomite women really look like. I'll be around them. Especially the higher up you get in Esau society, the uglier they get. This is a known fact. Just look at the royal family in England. The higher up you get, the uglier they get. It's actually a mad thing when you break it down. There you go, Margaret Sanger. These were all eugenicists, okay?
Yep.
There we go. The elder posted, we don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea.
Right. So, to get abortions as a normal practice amongst so-called blacks, Margaret Sanger had to go to the black preachers, because that was the basis of their leadership back then. All right, leaders have lost their voice, but there was a point where the preacher was the guy. You know, they didn't go to athletes and entertainers; they went to the preachers, and these preachers, were used to incorporate heathenistic practices like abortion into your culture. All right, to ultimately deal wisely with you and stop you from reproducing all of these unwanted weeds in their garden. And it has not worked. So now he has AI that's going to help him with this. And when AI was told to draw a picture of itself, who did it draw? It drew Charles Darwin, as a matter of fact. See if I can bring that up. AI was asked to draw a picture of itself. Okay, and who does it look like? It looks like these Edomite philosophers that we just reading about. These Edomite scientists who came with these theories that run the whole world. And this is because, as the scriptures say, their tongue walketh through the earth. See? And they've brutalized it. Yeah, AI was asked to draw a portrait of itself. And look, what does it look like? It looks like Charles Darwin. All right, and now you see, Trump and Musk, this whole talking point of invest in everything. AI is going to fix everything. What do you think they're getting ready to do? They're getting ready to wage war on the people, man, especially you Israelites. Give me 1 second here. So let's go to this video here to bring it all together, and then we'll close it out. Get a few more and close it out. All right, this is the Trump's DEI purge, a Trojan horse, because again they lay snares privily, man. All right, this is the book of Psalms 36:4. He deviseth mischief upon his bed. He setteth himself in a way that is not good. He abhorred not evil. See? But Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua is going to save us from this devil, man. Okay? Let's go here.
Thank you. The media, Eugene, is, basically dominated by headlines like a breathtaking first week or second week of the Trump administration, executive orders, what to make of it. Well, I believe the thing to make of it is a slightly disguised but very real war against Black America. It'll be a war against Latino America, against women, against gay people, against disabled people, but it's starting with and is mainly focused as a war against Black America under the pretext of eliminating DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Anyway, this is going to be an epic battle. Let's talk about it.
No, I think you're right. And in fact, in a way, the most important thing to start is to define the stakes of the battle, because in the context of, quote unquote DEI, which is, just like critical race theory before, it's a slogan that's designed to really hide the impact of what's going on, because, so much of around quote unquote DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, so on and so forth, there have been so much of a caricatured approach to some of these programs that in many ways, in many people's eyes, it's not as connected to the historical struggle of Black people for liberation. But really under the framework of DEI is, as you say, this broader attack on anything really that will address discrimination in the United States. I mean, this is basically what it boils down to. There is a factual reality that, as I often say, most things that are bad tend to be disproportionately Black. So you look at unemployment, for instance, Black unemployment in good times and bad.
It's always focused on black. See? So ending DEI is ending Black. Ending the woke agenda is ending Black. Ending what's draining our system is ending Black. When you give billions of dollars, all right, to the small hats annually. Okay? But anytime they want to talk about what is draining the economy, what's draining, where all of our resources going, it's always going to start with the so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. It's always like that. Even when they brought the jab out, the first people it was focused towards is the we got to get this to Blacks and brown people. They said that. Bill and Melinda, right? So why is it always Jake? Well, it's because this is the Edomite. These are Edomites. And you are a problem, especially with now, all of you got the Israelites out there. They like, wait a minute, we got to get control of this. So they hide it under all these different agendas that sound good. All right. And really in the grand scheme of things, Esau he wants to return back to being known as the superior man and fix all of these weeds in the garden. Let's keep listening.
Tends to be about double white unemployment. When you look at wages in this country, on average, Black people are making about 25% less than white people. If you take the median white family, right, so your average middle-class white person, and compare them to the median Black family, so let's just say your average middle-class Black family, there's about $160,000 gap in terms of the average amount of wealth that family has. Black people are 30% more likely to have heart disease, 50% more likely to have asthma, 3 times more likely than white people to have kidney disease.
And this all goes back to the curses. You see, but now the curses are flipping onto these Edomites. See?
They are 5 times more like people. We are 5 times more likely than white people to be imprisoned. And we're about 30% of the people who are killed by the police, despite only being 13% of the population. So most things that seem bad to people tend to be disproportionately Black. That is a factual reality. Now, there are 2 explanations for why that is. One is that the history of slavery, Jim Crow, other forms of racism, whether they be de jure by law or de facto, just, not legal, but still happening and existing, and that those things have all added up to create not only massive disparities, but to embed themselves into the structure of U.S. society so that the society without any guardrails, let's say, put around it, will continue to reproduce these racialized inequalities. Black people will continue to be in a situation where most things that are bad are disproportionately happening to them. So that is one explanation. Slavery, racism, Jim Crow, so on and so forth is what led to that. Now, the other explanation is, well, racism. The other explanation is that Black people are innately inferior, that anything bad that may be happening to the Black community is happening purely because of the choices of Black people and the government doesn't need to do anything, can't do anything. People just need to change their own behaviors and realities, and it'll all just work out. Now,
that's it. Survival of the fittest. They're not fit. So let's stop helping these undesirables and make America great again. So there's getting ready to be a war waged on you, Israelites, all under the guise of science.
of course, if you believe that slavery, years and years and years of Jim Crow racism, both the legal kind and the fact that was maybe not written into the laws, but was still enacted in certain policies like redlining and different things like that. If you believe that those are in fact the causes of why most of the things people consider bad tend to be disproportionately black, then you will say the government should, in fact, take affirmative action to.
And niggas were taught to be savages, all right, by their teacher. Who taught them? You know, because we speak against the behavior of our people. We don't justify it. We ain't talking about running around here talking about Black Lives Matter. But, you know, when you go into why Jake is the way he is, let's not act like Esau's system it doesn't have a big part in that. All right.
To address these ongoing harms.
Because if they really wanted Jake to so-called be better, they would put them in the position to be, because you're their owner, right? You run this world. Why is rap music as toxic as it is? Why is so-called black entertainment as toxic as it is? Why are all of these drugs and guns funneled into these communities? We can go on and on and on. So you Edomites have your part in where Jake is as well, man. You see? Although we know 2/3 of them are going to be destroyed, you're going to have to pay for everything you did. In the grand scheme of things, you don't get pardon for all of your sins in the story of the volume of the book, the scriptures, man. Let's keep going.
Right, to do something to try to change them in real time, and that they should consider and try to make laws around what has been grouped under disparate impact, which is trying to foresee how these different policies will be recreated and how these different realities will be recreated, and how to construct policies by which you can prevent that from taking place, right? So that you will do something to try to address this historic discrimination. So what we see under this attack in DEI, even though it's labeled DEI, and undoubtedly, you know, the Trump administration is going to go out of their way to find the most ridiculous looking things that they can possibly find. And they are going to say, look at all this ridiculous things that were going on. It's not really about diversity. It's all just liberalism run amok, blah, 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 blah.
And the LGBT has a big part to do with that. This is why people are like, yeah, he's right, because it makes sense. You know, have all of these weirdos included in your society for the purpose of making things fair. You know, but this is why getting into Esau's civil rights and all of these various different terms that he's put on you is very dangerous. This is why Martin Luther King said, I have led my people into a burning house. Okay? Because it was under the guise of civil rights. Yeah, we're going to treat you equal. All right, we're going to include you in our world. But look what it's leading to now.
The cover of that to actually attack the entire framework by which action to remedy discrimination, which is ongoing and harmful, is operating under.
Here's some of the language from the DEI executive orders. I therefore order all executive departments and agencies to terminate all discriminatory and illegal preferences, mandates, policies, programs, activities, guidance, regulations, enforcement, actions, consent orders, and requirements. I further order all agencies to enforce our long-standing civil rights laws to combat illegal private sector DEI preferences, mandates, policies, programs, and activities. Now, that's just one part of it, Eugene. So what Trump and the billionaires are basically saying is that anybody who is working in the federal government who's black, anybody who's working in private corporate America who's black, is there really because of DEI preference.
That's it. You see what I'm saying? And that's just not true. That's not true. In fact, a lot of white women have benefited from DEI when you go into it. Okay, but DEI is now black. That's that's really the narrative. Okay, but when you look at even those pilots who were driving that helicopter, all right, although I believe it was unmanned and wasn't nobody on it, it's 3 Edomite people that was supposedly running it. But Trump just threw out DEI and it just immediately became a black issue. because they're getting ready to wage war on your ass. All right? And a lot of you lower level Edomites are going to be victims in this as well, in their plan.
That allowed black people, rather than their white counterparts, to get a particular job. The assumption here is that all employers, be it the government or private corporations, would of course hire white people instead of black people, except for all of the DEI programs, ideologies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, under the banner of DEI, I believe what the Trump administration, what the billionaires are doing, is saying all of the inclusive requirements that were created in society after centuries of exclusivity, where black people were kept out of decent paying jobs, any inclusion of black people by whatever means is now somehow discriminatory against white people. The basic assumption is if a black person has a job instead of a white person, it's based on anti-white discrimination, like the old thesis of reverse racism that came about in response to civil rights programs trying to remedy centuries of discrimination. I mean, that's how I read this.
No, I think that's a good reading, Brian, of what's happening here. I mean, the whole concept of this is that there is some sort of conflict between the idea of increased diversity and remedying ongoing historically rooted harm aimed at the black community and merit. I mean, that is really the sort of logical fallacy of the entire thing, that the only way to address discrimination is to devalue merit. And that is, in fact, not the case. It is, in fact, to consider the historic and ongoing harm that is being directed towards, in this case, as we're talking about the black community, in conjunction with the idea of merit. It's not like if you can't do anything you need to do to be a doctor, you can just become a doctor because you're black. It's not as if you want to be a pilot, you can just become a pilot because you are black. It is that all things being equal, considering actual merit and what it takes to do the job or to be trained in the profession, that in a certain subset of cases, which will in fact be a minority of cases, that a black applicant will be favored over a white applicant to address the historic discrimination addressed at the black community that excluded all black people from most of these occupations and areas of employment, regardless of merit.
And then they do it with the so-called Mexican as well. They're taking our jobs, you know?
Hundreds of years. So when you have a situation like, say, Charlie Kirk, for instance, who was one of the top people in the MAGA movement, saying, the thing about if he saw a black pilot, he would be worried that they wouldn't be qualified. Well, why? I mean, the reality is whatever, I don't really even know what's going on and how they hire pilots, but regardless of whatever quote unquote DEI or affirmative action or whatever you want to call it policy that any of these airlines would have, or private jet companies in his case, to bring in a pilot, no matter what, the pilot will be qualified to fly. There's just they're not going to just bring someone in who can't fly and who will crash the plane. That's not how it works. But it creates this logical fallacy, this whole thing that somehow diversity and merit, somehow addressing discrimination and merit are counterposed to each other, which is not in fact the case. But once you start there, all of the other factors that come in the critique of DEI and the critique of affirmative action all follow in train. So it all starts with this initial totally false statement that somehow anything designed to address the historic and ongoing discrimination against the black community is something that devalues merit, and that is just not the case.
Yeah, and again, it's really important for our audience to remember that DEI is now sort of a banner. 5 years ago, it was critical race theory. They said we had to get rid of critical race theory as if it was teaching something like untrue about American history, when in fact it was an assault against black history, teaching black history. So in Florida and in other places now, kids can't learn about American history if it includes the truth about black history or the treatment of black people in Florida or other parts of the United States. So we've moved on from critical race theory, having canceled black history teaching in America, to now be DEI, as if everything that has been achieved by the civil rights revolution to remedy discrimination is a form of discrimination against white people. And again, I think the point you're making about merit and opportunity is so important. People are not getting their jobs because they don't have merit. They're finally getting jobs because opportunities have been opened up after opportunities were closed down. I want to remind everybody who wants to do a little study of real American history, in South Carolina, at the end of the Civil War in 1865, most of the skilled workers in the state of South Carolina were enslaved people, were black people. And so the new black codes and anti-black laws that were passed after the Civil War made it illegal for an employer to hire a black skilled worker. So all the fathers...
Because Jake will always outperform Esau with less. Okay? But in the grand scheme of things, man, I wish I can go, because it's already went over what I wanted, but maybe we'll do a part 2. Maybe me and the brother Require Quam will go in and just merge our ideas together, because, I mean, what he's getting ready to do, Let's listen to a little bit more of this, brother, and we'll close it out.
Yeah, you see? Right? This is what it is. All right? But they were hiding it through what? Wokeism. Because who pushed Planned Parenthood the most? The left, right? The Democrats. Because they are hiding it behind political correctness and wokeism. So let's jump back, right? I keep going into the algo stuff, right? So where are we at? Social Darwinism. I was like, where the hell did the social Darwinism link go? Okay. Oh yeah, I finished on that. So where are we at? So eugenics. Right? Eugenics is another way of saying social Darwinism. Eugenics means well-born, the highborn.
Right, the royal ones.
Is a set of beliefs and practices that aim to prove the genetic quality of a human population. Historically, eugenicists have attempted to alter the frequency of various human phenotypes by inhibiting the fertility of people and groups they consider inferior and promoting that of those they consider superior. So what is that?
And that's where the IQ test and things came in.
I mean, they want to inhibit you Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians from propagating, and they want the elites to propagate. They're saying she didn't say that. Of course they would. Of course they would say she didn't say that.
Because we live in an age of fact check. Everything got to be fact checked, and which causes doubt. No, she said that shit. Okay, we have the proof. We have the history. All right, to back it. You know.
False quotes. But it was part of eugenics. So that's how we know she did say that, because eugenics comes from social racism, and we're reading it right here. Eugenicists have attempted to alter the frequency of various human phenotypes by inhibiting the fertility of people and groups they consider inferior and promoting of those that they consider superior. This is what Planned Parenthood would set up to do, to inhibit the fertility of phenotypes they didn't like, which are so-called black people. Believed in it. Consequently, many countries adopted eugenics policies intended to improve the quality of their population's genetic stock. Okay, and it says, although it originated as a progressive social movement in the 19th century, in contemporary usage in the 21st century, the term is closely associated with scientific racism, which is what it is. New liberal eugenics seeks to disassociate itself from the old authoritarian eugenics by rejecting coercive state programs and relying on parental choice or whatever. And what were they doing? Forced sterilizations and all these things, man. All right.
And your foods, 40 ounces of soda in black neighborhoods. Okay, malt liquor.
Now, let's talk about the bell curve.
Man, it's so much.
The bell curve, yeah? This is going to come back in a big way because this is science. The bell curve, intelligence and class structure in American life, is a 1994 book by the psychologist Richard J. Herrnstein.
What do you think he is?
I wonder if anyone can guess, yeah?
What nation he is?
What nationality this guy is from?
Small hat.
I can't guess. I can't say it on camera because it's gonna be big problem. If I speak, I'd be in problem. But I wonder if anyone can guess by that surname who this dude is. Anyway, Richard J. Herrnstein and the political scientist Charles Murray, in which the authors argue that human intelligence is substantially influenced by both inherited and environmental factors. Inherited. And that it is a better predictor of many personal outcomes, including financial income, job performance, birth out of wedlock, and birth out of wedlock. Who do they target? Boy. And involvement in crime than are in individual parental socioeconomic status. What are they telling you there? What this book was basically saying is a scientific fact that the people that you see in the ghettos are there because they are genetically predisposed to be there because they lack intelligence. This is what I'm going to cut it real short. This is what this book is telling you. This is scientific racism. This is eugenics. This is evolution. Yeah? And this book is called The Bell Curve. This is science. Remember they said trust the science? This is science. But the woke people didn't really want to talk about it because it's not their place to talk about it. But you know who is talking about it? We're going to get it. And then you can go look up scientific racism. I'm not going to prolong it. Right. Let's play this.
So here's another example. Ashkenazi Jews have an average IQ of 115. So in the typical population overall has an average IQ of 100. 15 points is about the difference between the typical
So their BS on their BS.
See, you brothers and sisters who are coming into this truth, this is what this world is ran on. You know, this is why we're bringing this out. You know, Salakia for the long video, but, you know, there's so much I want to get out. But let's listen to a little bit more of this, and then we'll close it out.
IQ scale, the highest IQ people on the earth is the Ashkenazi Jew. What a coincidence. So, yeah, where was this thing? And I got this, this is written here. Let me see. The Natural History of Ashkenazi Intelligence. And it says here, there are several key observations that motivate our hypothesis. The first is that the Ashkenazi Jews have the highest average IQ of any ethnic group, combined with an unusual cognitive profile, while no similar...
15. So in the typical population overall has an average IQ of 100. 15 points is about the difference between the typical college student and the typical high school student. Okay, so it's not a massive difference. But if you go to the extreme, say, well, let's go look at people who only have an IQ of 145, which is kind of where you hit the beginnings of genius level. It's like the Jews are overwhelmingly overrepresented. So relatively small differences in the average can produce walloping differences at the extremes. People don't understand that. It's not surprising because it actually requires a fairly sophisticated grasp of statistics. But when we're
it requires you to be the devil and to fix it all in your favor, which is what they're doing. Like I said, this whole evolution, and it was all just to justify their own lust, to justify their hatred of Jake. So obviously, you know, Jake is going to be at the bottom of this. Satan, boy.
Talking about things like differential outcome in the workplace, then you have to take a sophisticated
differential outcome in the outcraze. What is he saying there? And then the reason why so-called white people get promoted more and at the tops of the companies is because, and the JOOs, is because they're just hiring intelligence. It's not because anybody's holding Jake back or because of any racism or hatred. It's because that's how it should be. And you have to read in between the lines of what these people are saying, man. Okay?
At the extremes, people don't understand that. It's not surprising because it actually requires a fairly sophisticated grasp of...
You have to be sophisticated to understand the truth of what we're saying. To break it down, you got to be smart to understand, that, they're just niggas. Basically, that's really what it all comes down to.
That's what he's saying.
Just bringing it back to, look, man, they're niggas. Like, we ain't gonna... You want us to go into the deep intellectual? We could do that, but just understand that, they're just...
That's what they're saying.
They don't belong. They're just brutes. They just bounce balls, sing and dance, and they're just big dick gorillas, basically. When it comes to anything that requires any form of intelligence, don't put them there. They don't belong there. Just let them rap and dance.
Statistics. But when we're talking about things like differential outcome in the workplace, then you have to take a sophisticated statistical approach to it, or you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And unfortunately, many of the people who are talking about things like gender differences, they have no idea what they're talking about. They don't know the literature. They don't know there is a literature. They don't understand biology. Like the social constructionist types, the women's studies types, the neo-Marxists.
What they do is, they group women's equality in with Jake. So it's like, listen, man, women, the truth is women are inferior to men. And the truth is that Jake is inferior to the so-called white man. So they're grouping these two things together where they don't belong together.
Right.
That's why you got the gender. That's why they grouped Jake in with LGBT.
That's
this
right.
This is why they grouped Jake in with LGBT.
Man.
So when they turn around, it's just like, just wash everything out. Yeah, and by the way, the so-called black scientifically, they're inferior. And there's only two genders.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, okay. There's only two genders, and Jake is just naturally stupid. Okay, got it.
They don't give a damn about biology. It's like they...
Yeah, good scripture. Psalm 64, 2 and 3. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. Yeah, this whole thing of merging Jake, the civil rights movement, with the LGBT movement was all so they can turn around, and when they just get rid of wokeness, put you, Jake, back where they think you belong. It's all been calculated, man.
Inhabit some disembodied universe.
All right.
Not surprising that people don't want to know the truth about IQ because it's quite nasty. I mean, there are huge differences between people in their intrinsic ability to learn, and that has walloping economic and social consequences. And so,
of course, that's the reason. Listen, the reason why all these people in these third world countries are poor is because they're not white. They just, they got low IQs.
there's a bitterness in that. That's
I mean, people just don't want to accept it. They want everything to be woke. They want everything to be nice, but it's the cold hard truth. And you don't see Vocab Malone out fighting against all this. This has a much bigger platform than what we're doing, and Vocab Malone ain't out there fighting that. No, he ain't.
I think we still have to address it and take it seriously. But so for me, it's like IQ does the liberal and the conservative political perspectives incredible damage, because the conservatives are likely to say, well, there's a job for everyone if they just get up and get at it. And the liberals like to say, well, everybody can be trained to do everything. And both of those are wrong, because
listen, of course, you're wrong. These Negroes are useless. Just like what they were teaching back in hardcore slavery. This is just nothing more than Esau now going back to what he always wanted and what he always believed. You Negroes are useless, and we're gonna turn you back into beasts of burden. I hope brothers can see this is. I've got books, and you got to remember that there was a time where they didn't want Jake to read or write. They said Jake can't fly a plane, Jake can't do this, Jake can't do that. They're going back to that, and they're gonna bring all that science back under the guise of, it's an uncomfortable truth, but there's two genders. So we got to trust the science. It's better.
There's a large number of people who have enough trouble with abstraction that finding a productive job in a complex society has become extraordinarily difficult. And that's a huge problem.
If these Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians are unemployed, it's because they got low IQs. That's why. It's nothing to do with us. It's just because they got low IQs. What are we meant to do?
And we have no idea what to do with it. We won't even look at it.
Yes, but they're going to look at it now because they're ready to roll out the new world order. All right, where's the next clip?
So you can finish watching that video. So in the next video, Lord willing, me and him get together. We're going to go into how AI will be used to instill these ideologies and to, root out low-hanging fruit and establish themselves as the superior people of the earth. So with that, hopefully y'all are edified. I'm going to leave it there. Shalom.